The living room was filled with the warm glow of late afternoon sunlight as Mr. Mbuyi sat across from his son, Daniel, who had returned home for the weekend from university. The house, though modest, had always been a place of lively discussion, and tonight would be no different. Daniel, young, curious, and eager, had come back with questions. His father could sense them. Daniel, like many young Africans today, was searching for something deeper, something powerful. Tonight, Mr. Mbuyi knew exactly the story to tell him. He cleared his throat, looked at Daniel, and began. "Have I ever told you the story of Patrice Lumumba?" he asked, his voice steady and eyes reflective. Daniel shook his head, and his father continued, his words weaving together memories and lessons from the past. Patrice Lumumba was not just a leader, he was a beacon, a spark that lit up the entire continent. He believed in something so powerful that it shook the walls of oppression. "You see, son, during his time, our people were under colonial rule, treated like foreigners on our own land. But Lumumba, he saw a future where we could stand tall, where African nations could govern themselves, make their own decisions, and forge their destinies without foreign interference." Mr. Mbuyi leaned forward, his voice growing firmer, the weight of history pressing upon his words. Lumumba wasn't just a leader, he was a visionary. When he spoke, it was like thunder. His words sparked something dormant in people, something that colonial rulers feared more than anything: self-worth, a belief in ourselves as Africans. He didn't preach hatred or revenge. No, Lumumba preached dignity, self-respect, unity. Daniel was transfixed. He could see his father's passion, hear the longing for change in his voice. "But what made Lumumba so special, Dad? What made him so different?" he asked quietly. "Courage, my son. Lumumba had the courage to say what many of his time didn't dare. He was not afraid to call out injustice, not afraid to demand that Africa be respected. He told the Belgians, face to face, that the time for colonial rule was over. Do you understand what that means, son? To stand in front of those who oppressed your people and demand they leave? That is leadership." And it was that courage, that unyielding bravery, that made him a threat. Mr. Mbuyi paused, letting his words sink in. "But, Daniel," he said, his tone softening, "courage like that often comes with a cost." Patrice Lumumba was seen as a threat by those who held power, not just in Belgium, but across the Western world. And for that, he was silenced. They took him away from his people, tortured him, and killed him. They tried to erase him, erase his dream. Daniel looked down, feeling a mix of anger and sadness. He'd heard about colonialism, about the struggles of African leaders, but hearing this from his father made it more real, more personal. "So, what happened to his dream?" he asked. "That, my son, is the question I ask you," Mr. Mbuyi said, his voice firm but gentle. Lumumba's dream didn't die with him. It lives in each of us, in every African who believes in a better future for our continent. But we must carry it forward. We must believe in ourselves, not rely on others to tell us our worth. Our generation struggled for political independence, but your generation must fight for a new independence, a freedom of the mind. Our people need to wake up. We need to see ourselves as Lumumba saw us, capable, dignified, united. Daniel felt a surge of responsibility. "But how, Dad? How can we change?" Mr. Mbuyi smiled, placing a hand on his son's shoulder. "It starts here, Daniel, You must believe in the power of education, the power of unity. Study hard, but don't study just to earn a degree. Learn about Africa, our history, our heroes. Remember that Lumumba's strength didn't come from foreign powers. It came from the people. Talk to others, inspire them, make them see that our path to true freedom lies in our own hands. As the evening shadows deepened, Mr. Mbuyi's voice softened, though his conviction remained strong. Son, Lumumba showed us that we have everything we need right here, within ourselves. He was one man, and he shook an empire. Imagine what we could achieve if we all stood together. Our destiny doesn't belong to anyone else. It belongs to us. In the silence that followed, Daniel felt something ignite within him, a resolve, a sense of purpose. As he looked at his father, he realized he wasn't just hearing a story. He was receiving a torch, passed down from a leader who had long left this earth, but whose dream lived on.